He's the man to do the damage. Oh! As he looks for another headshot.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Richard Lewis Show. I'm veering outside of my usual territory, but not entirely, because it's still esports related. I'm not fully retired yet, evidently. This is like a farewell tour of saying goodbye to all my friends. This is what it is. But anyway, it's more of a Valorant thing. I know it's really tragic. It really is. That's going to be the thing. It's going to be like some Norm Macdonald shit. And it's going to be like, oh, no, he was dying the whole time. It'll be something tragic like that. You'll all feel terrible. But anyway,
I should laugh now.
No, it's fine. There'll be many a subreddit celebrating. So anyway, it's Vansilli. You know him, you love him. One of the premier talents in Valorant right now. But someone I've known a long, long time because started in Counter-Strike way back when. So look, I'll just start with some pleasantries. How's the roof?
The roof? It's good. It's good. It cost me $14,000 to get that roof fixed. So yes, it took us a bit. Sorry about that. We couldn't meet up. What was it, last week because of that?
I think I fucked you over a couple of times as well. Like I've been working on some stories and some bullshit.
It's this thing about being old and having responsibilities, and like, you know, you can't sit at the computer for 16 hours a day anymore, and you got to start growing up at some point, right? But the roof's good. $14,000 in total Canadian, but the brand new roof on top of the head. And now I just need to find that money back. So, hey, if somebody wants to hire me.
yeah, exactly. Let's fingers crossed. Papa needs a new roof, you know? So look, let's start with this, because one of the things that always really surprised me about your career, and I know we've talked about this like privately, and I've talked about it with other dudes as well, is there's this perception that if you get in on the ground floor and you establish yourself, you will always be set for life within an esport if you are the voice that people immediately associate with a game. But that in Counter-Strike I didn't really hold true for you, because I remember way back when, you know, I heard you casting, you know, I want to say like almost right at the start, certainly, you know, very early days. You know, yours was a voice that I heard immediately for any of the North American stuff. and yet when it came to like CSGO and that starting to rise, it didn't feel that you were, you know, in contention a lot of the time. And I saw other names and other casters, and like, real talk, people not as good as you, but also, you know, like people who didn't have your tenure, your experience, hadn't worked on big events, and they were getting brought in for things like, you know, CSGO and stuff like this. And I was like, where the fuck's Vansilli at? And so I've always wondered this, like what happened? Because for me, you should have been like all that other talent, ground floor motherfucker that gets in the elevator, goes all the way up to the top, stays there to the point where everyone hates you, and then you know, right?
They hated me too soon, but I'll get there.
Okay. So tell me, brother, like why were you not the shit in CSGO? I don't get it.
No, first off, I appreciate the kind words too, and I think overall it's been just a question of timing in the end, because yes, when I first started, I started casting Counter-Strike in 2002, 2003, 1.5, 1.6. We did a lot of events from then on. And back then when we were doing it, we weren't really getting paid for it, right? And even then, when CSGO first came out, we weren't really making that much money either. So in terms of so you know that. So in terms of timing, it was at a point where I think Counter-Strike came out. It was like 2012, 2013 for me, like that now. And at that time, I think I'm like 25 or 26. And I've been trying to like grind into the esports scene as a caster for the longest time, doing it for as a passion and more as a hobby, because like I said, we weren't getting paid for it. So now you have to try to balance, okay, working a part-time grocery store job, asking for vacation all the time to try to travel to these events. It wasn't going to fly. And then at 26, 27, at some point, it was like, okay, well, I got to put food on the table somewhere in some shape or form. And it seems as though I don't really have a chance to break it through for casting yet, right? With everything that's been going on, especially as the events get bigger and bigger, and as CS gets known, and as esports continue to grow, you also have to start make the job more legitimate. Especially as a Canadian, if I want to start casting in the US or something like that, I need to get a work visa. And a work visa back then too wasn't easy to get. And it was fairly expensive, still expensive today. And putting all those into consideration and weighing the pros and cons of, is it feasible and realistic that I could make a career out of casting esports, especially in Counter-Strike? It wasn't feasible back then. So unfortunately, like ESEA Land 14, 15, I got to cast that at the Dallas hotel, the DoubleTree Hotel. That's when iBuyPower beat Titans. So it was actually like some fun events right there, and that's where I got to finally see Moses after like 10 years of not seeing him, because he was competing when I was casting him. And then suddenly I got to meet Anders. I got to meet Moses there, and then it was just like, okay, well, I'm gonna go back to my regular job, because 2011 was when I started my career job working for a tobacco company. So if you want to try to work into esports, you need to have some sort of like vacation time. I built that into esports casting if I could, but I'm only allowed like 4 weeks over the year. So after that, finish that event, go back into working, cast as a hobby online, but never had a chance to really break through in CS right after. I kind of like softly hung up my headphones and my mic so I could just focus on something that's like a consistent cash flow for myself. And I think that's where I kind of like fell off in the end, unfortunately there. So I was at the wrong place. I mean, I was at the right place at the right time, but I chose the wrong fork at when I chose the wrong path. Was at that fork. I can't gamble it anymore, and I have to go into something more consistent.
Yeah, I mean, it's really funny actually, because I don't think people realize like just how like desolate the esports scene was, even as like late in the day as like 2013, even 2014. I was talking about it with Snappy, and what'll be the last episode, recorded it just a few days ago, and he was saying the same thing about being a player. He was in the second best team in Denmark in 1.6, and they were unsalaried. You know,
it's insane. Like, even if we want to talk salaries from back then too. So when I first started casting online as a passion, discovering this through online radio, AM radio only, broadcasting through Winamp. So we're going old school fucking here.
Yeah, very old school.
So that was zero pay. What was fun though was that you had so many like radio organizations competing against each other, more than just like one entity owning all of the broadcast rights, right? So you had like TSN, you had Radio ITG, you had like E-Revolution and stuff like that too. Quad V with Paul at some point as well came out later on throughout the years, and we weren't making any money at all. At least I wasn't as a caster. And then once we finally thought that we made it, we were getting paid like at least hotel, airfare, and then maybe just a stipend, like $30 US a day to like $60 US a day, just so that you could actually buy some meals. But that wasn't until like the third or fourth year of my casting that started coming. So my salary was basically trying to just not eat for the whole weekend, hoping to get catered food or something, so that I could make some money out of it, so that I could say,
living like a seagull, trying to get them fucking free chips or something. Yeah,
I was fighting, dude. I was fighting for scraps. No, but jokes aside, I mean, that was pretty much the salary back then, even until. Shit, I gotta say, maybe even until I started just freelancing a little bit more in like 2006, 2007, doing like booth work more than like online work for broadcasting and stuff like that. Even casting for CSGO back then in like 2012 was like $15 a map, and that wasn't a lot, right? So that was you couldn't make a living out of it. So that's why the decision was a lot easier to say, okay, well, I got to go into a career job.
Yeah, it's why I've always called esports. It's sort of like, I wrote an article way back when, back in the StarCraft 2 days, it was like a series of articles called Land of Broken Promises, right? But more appropriate it would have called it land of broken marriages, because having to explain to a partner, significant other, spouse, like, no, I'm going to have to make jack shit for like a year, 2 years. And then
today.
Yeah. Then I've really got my foot in the door, it was like so many people were doing that even back then, like even when CSGO was out, and it was just like, I think the people who had a better chance at making it, like real talk, I think it was generally the people that had like no other commitments,
Yeah, agree. I think that's what it was too, which is why like I worked just a basic job, minimum wage at the grocery store, so that if ever they don't let me get my vacation days, I could just say, screw it. Unfortunately, I want to take the risk and try to get into that, and I'll just find another job at another grocery store. Like, they don't do a fact check on the background. Like, okay, well, you worked at this grocery store. Oh, you just leaves all the time to go to events. Nobody does that. So at least when I applied for these jobs, and thankfully enough, the grocery store that I worked at always gave me those vacation days, so I was good for those. But if not, the grind has been pretty real. I even think to this day it's been pretty real. And I want to get back to like, thank you for the compliments as well, to saying like I was probably one of the guys up there. Even now, I look back to it, to when I was casting, maybe even when Valorant first came out, or a couple of years back when I was still doing CS. I kind of had like that mentality that I was the shit, like it's normal that when you're a caster or you're a public figure, you have to have that ego. But I had too much of an ego where I actually didn't even look back into my own broadcasts to see if I was actually doing a good job. And that's something that I paid more attention to when I started casting Valorant. Even when Sir Scoots and Alchemist were telling me, yo, you got to start listening to your own broadcast so you can improve. And I never wanted to. And I feel like I should have done that in the past, where maybe that could have helped me get a better chance to put my foot in the door in the CSGO scene at the international stage. But the boat has sailed with what was going on with CS, what was going on with my life. And now we're just make the turn back and see where it's going to lead us.
Yeah, because it's like, some people are all about that, like, it's like an old boys club and stuff. And it's like, it's way more complicated than that. Like, thinking about 2013 and thinking about that first CSGO major, like it's so surreal. You had BSL, right? Legendary, 1.6 player and fully qualified journalist. I always, I always liked him for that.
Awesome
but
guy.
Yeah, he was the host. And I remember by 2013, I'd hosted StarCraft 2 events, but I was told specifically I wasn't good enough to host a CS event, which, StarCraft 2 was meant to be the original like esports. So I was cast out. I wasn't considered. And then if you look at the commentators, Lurpis, who, I guess you can do some color with him, like, nothing personal. He understands the game. But, like Anders was told he wasn't good enough to commentate on the main stage. And yeah, I know, right? And meanwhile, we had as the American representative, Semler was there, but he was working with Anders, obviously. Although they broke that pairing up, and I think Semler had to do like a couple with like maybe Tosspot or Lurpis. It's all a bit hazy. But Corey Dunn. And I'm like, again, I don't give a fuck now. I'll just say whatever. I mean, I thought Corey was a much better like producer, like behind the scenes and director than caster ever. And so for me, it's like, it's sort of staggering to think that you were out there all that time, and like, I don't know, you just never got them big opportunities. Like, it just really, really crazy.
Yeah, I feel like I always had at least like a good network. Like I feel like I know the right people and I'm friends with the right people too. But I never want to be the person that wants to really try to impose to try to get into a certain space. Yeah. And as you said, like the tenure that I've had, like I've been casting video games now, coming up in October, it'll be 20 years. And I'm not going to be the person going into, I wasn't the person that went into Valorant to be like, yo, I casted esports for 20 years. Like put me in here, like I deserve to have this spot. And I think it was like a good feedback that was, or a good advice that was given to me by even Drake, my agent over at Vansilli, and even Uber, when I had the conversation with Mitch. And they were both like, yeah, man, like you've been casting for a while, but at the same time, like who who knows who the fuck you are, you know?
Yeah.
Like I'm going to be moving 20 years into casting esports. I've been casting esports for as long as some of the viewers have been alive for. So, so if I've casted like 20 years ago, they don't know who I am. They don't know what CS 1.6 was. And when it comes down to like CSGO now, or like even Valorant now, you kind of just have to remake a name for yourself. So I just wanted my work to do the talking for me, and that I leverage my work and the way that in my, I guess, my work ethic at the same time, and how I am in person and when I interact with people. I want to let that do the talking, to be like, yo, Vans is actually a really cool person to work with. Let's give him an opportunity for further events. Maybe I'm a little bit too passive that way, but I always wanted to believe more into that type of journey to try to make it through, if I could put it that way.
Yeah. Do you think that kind of, I don't know, like, because to call it taking a break isn't kind of accurate, but like, you know, having that other job to focus on. Do you feel that like sort of kept everything fresh and like kept your enthusiasm up when you had to sort of come back and do a gig?
Well, so for me, I've never lost the enthusiasm for casting. I've always had a passion for casting, and even now, like going into 2022, even looking back at my past broadcasts to want to improve, I still have the goal to wanting to be the best caster for the specific game that I want to work in, which is why I usually focus on just one game. And at the same time, I just love being able to provide some cool, enthusiastic plays by calling the action, and hopefully people enjoy it at the same time. And that's what gives me the most satisfaction, and that's what keeps me going. And to see that I still do that in Valorant right now, that as much as I did when I first started in 2002, 2003 for Counter-Strike, then I've never lost that drive. But the nice thing about being able to work for at least in esports to start to grind it out in competitive gaming before it was called esports, that in itself allowed me to build some sort of experience that I wasn't afraid to talk to like higher ups and bosses in like the corporate world. So I could walk up to the CEO, present an idea. I could walk up to HR, present an idea, or whatever. I'm at the meeting. I have no education here, right? So I haven't finished university, and I'm with other people that have master's degrees, that have bachelor's degrees, that's been into business for like 10 years. I was like, yeah, I've been in the streets, you know, kind of like that way, and be like, I think this would be a cool idea. And they're like, holy shit, we never really thought about that. And it becomes like a good idea that we're able to build upon like that. So I felt that through that experience and not having that shyness, because I've been casting in front of a camera, casting in front of an audience, that helped me in that aspect. And then that experience in itself for the corporate world helps me a little bit more understand why sometimes you have like net 30 days that are not being paid, or that are paid late and stuff like that too, and how like the timelines work basically to put an event together, and you're a little bit more lenient and accepting for these type of like issues that companies run into.
It was never politics then. There was never anyone, you know, out to get you.
No, I don't feel so. I don't feel like it, because every single person I've spoken to has always been like, we love working with you. I haven't heard anything bad about you. Maybe they don't want to tell me these kinds of things, but I've never heard anything, to be honest with you. And I wish that if there was anything, that people would be candid enough and understanding enough that I am not a person that takes anything like in a sour taste. If there is like constructive criticism or anything that needs to be brought up in terms of conversation to squash any type of like issues that we may have, then I'd love to have the conversation so we could get it done. But that never happened to me, and I've never gotten to any qualms like at a live event with any producer or anything like that, or any fan that's trying to walk over the barricade and strangle me or something like that, you know. So
I can tell you all about that one.
Yep, no issues there.
Yeah, you gotta watch out for that. But yeah, listen, you know, it's crazy because, like I say, I don't know. I probably, like, I know a few people who never got the breaks in this business, and I won't name names here, but there are a bunch of people that I think could have been really used on a broadcast that were never picked up or used in the right way in Counter-Strike. There were other people, you know, like you say, like guys like, for example, Vince is a good example. He won't mind me name dropping him, but like a dude that, you know, again, been doing it for, you know, 15, 16 years. And I think an immense talent. And yet, you know, he found himself like struggling to get on up the pecking order. And, you know, listen, for me, I know when people were telling me I couldn't do shit, I had a
Mm-hmm.
massive chip on my shoulder about it, for real.
Mm-hmm.
Like, well, you know, I had really credible industry people I liked who told me you will never be good enough to do on-camera work.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know, and it was like, you know, why do you think that? You know, like, so I can understand people getting like bitter or pissed off. So,
Mm-hmm.
you know, did that ever happen to you?
No, not ever. And which is why, like, even now, like, as we're moving, I don't know if I'm jumping the gun in where you're trying to bring the show, but fuck it, man. It's a podcast. We take it wherever we want, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So, so even in what's going to happen with like the partnership program for Riot for next year, I still don't know what's going to happen, right? I don't know if I'm going to be one of those people that are going to get picked, or even for last year when I didn't get to do champions last year in 2021, I was told that I was still pretty close, right? I was on that short list. I was almost there, but unfortunately it wasn't the case. Totally fine. I have no issues with it because the peers that I'm working with right now, I mean, you have the Pansy, you have Hypuck, you have Sideshow Brand, like you have some very talented broadcasters and peers that are in the industry right now for Valorant. So losing to them is not an issue for me because it's understandable that you have limited spots with the amount of talent that's available. So I never take it with a sour taste. But then when I was told that potentially we'll at least try to get you to a LAN event for 2022, but for 2022, I've had no type of conversations whatsoever as to even if I'm available for these events, right? So for Masters 1, Masters 2, or for Champions. So that is disappointing in itself because I would like to have that type of person that told you, like, for example, you are not good enough to be on camera, but I'd like to also understand a why.
Yeah.
So if there was actually somebody that is going to be part of like the hiring process or something like that too, and you want to have that conversation as to like, how do I improve myself and what am I doing wrong? What am I doing right? What do you like about the product that I'm giving as a caster? And what should I need to be working on? So at least I have like a checklist of like, okay, I could work on these things, but I never had those opportunities. So I feel like I don't know if it's because now if you're looking at esports currently with the people that are hiring under, I guess, the TOs or publishers or whatnot, is there a specific person that is a talent manager in itself that gives you a threshold of what the organization tournament organizer is currently looking for so that they could share that with you if you've at least had some sort of foot in the door? Naturally, I wouldn't give it to anybody that's just day one or month one into cast and they'd be like, yeah, like you need to work on this, because now they definitely have a lot of things to work on that they could figure out on their own by watching their own VODs. But I feel like if you've worked for a longer time with, let's say for you, for example, you've worked for a long time in the CSGO scene and you've done some events already, if you had the conversation with them to say, and they told you you'll never be good enough to be in front of a camera, you kind of want to know why. But if that action or if that answer is not given to you, it kind of just leads you into definitely, I'd be as sour as you are. Right.
Because... Well, I think I had an inkling why. I mean, listen, so first of all, obviously that was 2010, Richard. Yeah. A lot of people think I'm an asshole now. I've definitely fucking mellowed, dog. I don't know.
You're mellow for me, yeah, for sure. I mean, you've always been mellow with me, so
I know, right? Like, I mean, yeah, but like back in 2010, that was like where, it was a world in esports where you had to sort of hold your corner a little bit. You had to be like, Bodie from The Wire because it was such a small fucking scene.
Yeah.
If people in the same line of work as you took the work, there weren't enough work for you to get. And so, there was a lot of arguing and backbiting. Like there could only be one best esports journalist, for example.
Of course. Yeah.
So I was a bit of an asshole, like because you saw it felt like that came with a territory. If you weren't willing to fight, then you weren't gonna win. You were gonna get scraps from the table.
Yeah, I kind of feel like this is just like any job anywhere, right? So and that's the same thing in the corporate world. Like when I was working for the tobacco company for Philip Morris out in Canada, it's like, okay, well, unfortunately, one person leaves on a maternity leave or one person just leaves because they weren't happy. There's only one spot available and you need to have somebody that fills that. And what the company would do would probably is to go through references first because they trust the employees that are working for them, right? And I think in that sense, it kind of naturally creates that type of like clickiness that people have been talking about around esports, where it's like, okay, well, you only have a certain amount of spots available and everybody's just going to group up and tight niche and not let anybody else in. But I think that's just the normal nature of competition or just normal nature of being able to try to get into a job. You have to network well, and you hopefully network with the right people that's going to give you the recommendations to get where you need to be. I think the bigger difference now is because we're in an industry that has such a younger demographic, then you kind of take things more to heart, to be like we kind of like deserve it from time to time at this point, right? In today's world and generations, I find, and if it doesn't play to how you want it to play out, then naturally you have a lot of social media platforms that's going to help you amplify your voice in that sense.
Yeah.
So I think one thing that I always told newcomers and aspiring casters is to really just stay humble into all of these experiences. Whether you get events or you don't get events, just keep working on yourself, and hopefully the tides will turn. You'll get your opportunity. And this is why I still apply to myself now, even not knowing what's going to happen in 2023, right? So
yeah, I think image is another thing. Like, I've never really been particularly image conscious. Like, I never wanted us to be suits and ties.
Yeah.
I wanted to. I dress like Kevin Smith, and now I'm the same size as the motherfucker used to be. I'm actually the fat guy in the equation now. But I just never felt comfortable. Like, I used to be I don't know if it's like some psychological bullshit going on upstairs, because I'm like you. I used to work in the corporate world, and I fucking hated it. I hated every second of it. I used to look out the window thinking, like, I just want to do One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest and throw a desk through the fucking window and just run into the hills and never come back.
Well, Richard, you're wearing a Misfits t-shirt, so you probably had like propaganda t-shirts, black anti-flag, and the punk rock scene back then. That's just anti-government and anti-corporates.
That's what I thought I was going to be when I grew up. I thought I was going to be a punk singer. I was in punk bands for years.
That's awesome.
And the only way to feed my narcissism was esports. What a humiliating come down. But yeah, so no, I mean, for me though, I think, another reasonable grounds on which to reject people, it sort of is, it's entertainment. It's budget Hollywood. In esports now, and you need to be thin, you need to look young, you need to have nice clothes, you need to look good on camera, and there is an element of that which I this probably isn't a popular thing to say. I think it's valid. I think rejecting me because I got grey in the beard and I'm 40 pounds overweight is like I think that's a reasonable thing if you want to project a certain image around your broadcast, right?
I think even now in today's world, it's a little bit more lenient though, right? Because we are being a lot more inclusive as well. So, either you're a couple of pounds overweight, a couple of pounds underweight, whatever the standard is, according to the regular modern society or not modern society, the society standards of back then in like the 90s, that changes now to today. And even if you're looking at the broadcasts for CSGO now, like if you're watching the ESL Pro League, like you don't see Stunna wearing a suit every day. You don't see Sponge Chad wearing a suit every day. Even League of Legends broadcasts have changed.
We fought for that, man. Like, I mean, just on the weight thing. The weight thing's always been a particular bugbear around gaming because obviously it's a sedentary pursuit. And what's really interesting is, like, I remember when we were doing CGS, and any player who was fat was like, well, we're gonna, you had to explain, no, we're gonna make you go to the gym and all this. Like the first wave of like TV executives that came into the space were like, we need gaming to have a really, like, again, this word image, we need it to have this unscrupulous image. We can't be attacked on the grounds. It's encouraging people to like not look after themselves or be overweight or whatever. But yeah, I feel that we've embraced ourselves a little bit more. And so I know in Counter-Strike, just on the front, like on the clothing thing, we fought for ages for that. Like guys like Machine and Sponge guys and Henry and guys like this were like, why am I dressing like this when my audience dresses like me? you know?
Yeah. That's it. It's to make it more relatable too. And I think, and which is why we're seeing that a lot more. And exactly that, if you want to be more relatable too, you're taking more of a step back in terms of like the weight image and stuff like that too. So it almost feels like streams in itself is like the stepchild of like what TV used to be like. We don't fucking care about the suits on NFL Monday Night Football. We're just gonna be like our own style, our own image. We're street kids and stuff like that too. And I think it works.
And they've started doing that on the NFL broadcast now. If you notice, like a lot of ex-pros just come up like just looking fucking swag because like, you know, listen, I got these nice designer clothes. Like I ain't putting on a suit for this. Like look at this. Exactly. Look at my drip. Like it's fucking outrageous. So yeah, I get it. And you know, I do think actually one of the things I've noticed more and more these days is esports broadcasts and streaming culture is now starting to inform mainstream culture rather than the other way around. Like they're copying us now. You know, we're not copying them. So
exactly. So it's going towards a interesting direction, but I think it's for the good for sure in terms of like our own community and developing our own identity, right? You're not holding to yourself to the standards of like, we're not trying to be on TV anymore, right? We could be our own fucking shit. Yeah. Right. Because if it comes down to like, even when you're trying to build like a CSGO program in terms of a show or a Valorant program in terms of a show, you can't do it on national TV. You can't do it throughout the windows of like, you have to run an ad at this time. We don't even know if a game is going to go into overtime. If it goes into overtime, you're kind of fucked. So I think we have more. We kind of became woke in that sense to be like, okay, we don't have to follow to like the industry standards on television, and we'll run our own thing to make sure that we just make an entertaining product. Because even then, like I'm watching Valorant right now. We're in the second best of 3. Who's going to a hockey game that's going to watch 3-4 series throughout the whole day? They just want to watch for that 1 hour plus the intermissions and get the fuck out, you know? But gamers are really tied into the product of the game itself and not really tied into a team, which is kind of like cool as well.
So there's a question in all of this for you. And then we'll leave the broadcast portion behind. But you know, you're an older guy, right? You know, you're 38. You look about 25. It's like
I just shaved just for you, Richard.
Yeah, I want to know what this. I just want to know what the secret is. Like you got a bowl of stem cells just out of fucking shots. I mean, you know,
white rice, baby.
but you know, do you think because you're an older guy in a younger industry, like I think there's a lot of analog between what we do and being a children's entertainer in some ways, like being a children's TV presenter. Do you feel more pressure to not show that age and, you know, look like someone that, hey, you know, here I am working with someone who's like 19 and on a broadcast and I'm not weird and not out of place.
No, I actually don't. I almost feel like Golden Boy pretty much right now, right? And Golden Boy embraces that boomer and that age in him. But I even outside of like the work environment, when I'm living my everyday life, yes, of course, I'll still like to like lay back, watch a movie, and I'll be less upbeat and stuff like that too. But as soon as I step out of the house, it's not a character that I'm putting on, but I just like being a fucking silly man. So I bring that personality that I am on the streets onto the camera. So it's almost like the real me pretty much. So I don't find a pressure in terms of like, am I feeling older? Yes, physically, but mentally, I still feel that I'm fucking 23, right? And I could still try to keep up with the slang as much as I can. But if not, I still keep the same type of like personalities. Because again, corporate world, you're going to have a lot of new interns, a lot of new people coming out fresh of university that's going to come start working with you. At some point, you're going to be in your 40s, 50s. You could maybe be a manager. You could maybe work the same rank as them as well. Or you could basically become a mentor too. And I'm pivoting towards that area right now. And I feel in my career for casting where I still want to cast because I have a passion for it, but I still want to make sure that I share whatever experience that I have and whatever tips that I could provide for future generations, so that at least we have a minimum bar set that could be good enough to my standards, and that could hopefully leverage the minimum threshold of like good talent that we'll have on future broadcasts.
Yeah, and I think that's super important as well, because we're getting to that stage now where we're going to have adults, boomers, old guys, you know, whatever you want to call them, but like people who like totally grew up around this, totally endemic to this, and aren't like the weird outside fucks that were coming in at the start that were, you know, hey, look at me, I got a nice suit and then I promised these kids the world and never deliver on the contract and stuff like this. Like, I think I've said it for like a long, long time. Like one of the biggest issues we have in the industry is a lack of mentorship.
Yes.
We've actually got like, we're starting to get there, but I think all these like, mentorship programs that I'm seeing popping up around and stuff like that, I think that's all like hugely positive for the industry because it's not just expertise, it's also safeguarding,
Yeah, I agree. And even that's why even when we're just talking about, yes, you're able to do this event or not do that event, having that person being able to give you that feedback is the type of mentorship that even I'm looking for right now is to like, if I'm not getting these events, why am I not getting them? And like, guide me through this and see how I do better. Right. And if the industry had more of it in the future so that we could actually, prevent these uncertainties and maybe try to lower the rate of imposter syndrome that keeps growing within the talent scene, so that hopefully could be a goal later on.
So here's a question for you, right? You'll like this one. It's
on me.
It's 2016.
Okay.
Things are changing in the esports industry. There's lots going on. CS is being brought to American TV via the way of E-League, but also a new emergent first-person shooter property is being produced by Activision Blizzard. It's ready to go. It's going to have its own esports league. Right, it's Overwatch. Everybody loves it, and wow, look at the characters and look at the league and the names and the regional stuff that we tried and failed a billion times. And so a load of people, because we were at this, like we were really leveling up in CS, and if you were in, you were in. There were a number of people that started looking over at Overwatch. If you remember, even some of the big names in Counter-Strike, like Anderson Semler, did Overwatch stuff. So I always wanted to ask you, when Overwatch kind of like started to come through as being the next big thing, TM. Did you ever think about jumping over?
Hell no. I love Counter-Strike, man. And like I said, when it comes to casting for me, I have to also enjoy the game, right? So at least play it, enjoy it. I didn't like Overwatch for me because it was just spamming shit. Like you're just spamming abilities, you're just shooting your gun, you're hoping that your ult comes up and then you're just gonna hit Q, and then it's like a rinse and repeat until you reach your objective. I guess in a sense it was almost similar to like TF2 or to like Return to Castle Wolfenstein or Enemy Territory in that style, in that sense, which I really loved. But it felt like there was too much going on in that game, and it didn't intrigue me as much. Because at the same time, like I said, like I was still a huge CS fan, right? Even though like I'm working the corporate world, I have time to follow just a few esports. I'm gonna keep following CSGO because I hold it near to heart. And I'm at the point where I'm still having the hopium that there's going to be the next iBuyPower that's going to come out, and we're going to get like an NA major or something like that too, right? So I was a fond NA fan of Counter-Strike. I love how the game's being played. I love casting the game. I love the players that are in there. All my friends are part of the talent scene too, so it was just easy for me to continue to just stick around with Counter-Strike, because I wanted to be with my friends if I had that opportunity to continue to cast. So it comes down to that. I don't think I would have ever gone over to Overwatch, even if there's some good talent and casters over there too, like I mentioned before, Uber, Achilleos, Matt, Mr. X. It'll be nice to work with them too, but the game in itself didn't intrigue me enough to try to make the switch. I never really wanted to switch to any other games than other than sticking with Counter-Strike really when we got into the real esports, because other AAA titles that are available then are League of Legends, Dota, and I didn't and maybe even StarCraft from time to time, right, when you look at the DreamHacks and stuff like that too, and the WCS. But I still wanted to stick with Counter-Strike because I didn't have the other games didn't appeal to me in terms of like a casting opportunity. I'd watch it casually, but I wouldn't want to cast it.
So it begs the question then. You've done it perfectly for me. Thank you, Alex.
Why Valorant?
Yes, there it is. Read my mind. So yeah, hit me with it.
Yeah, so Valorant for me is because you still have the tactical FPS portion, kind of like Counter-Strike, but you also had a lot of people that were from the CS scene that started to make the switch over to Valorant. I mean, Volcano's working on the maps as well, so I'm a huge fan of Sal. Another person that's been in the 1.6 scene in a North American scene that played with RDW and also played a lot with the Doctors for Call of Duty 4 is Entity. He's been working on the game as well. But there's also another layer onto it as well, is because Valorant comes out in 2020. We're in the middle of the pandemic. I just actually lost my other job. So I've worked in the tobacco company with Philip Morris for, I think, 7 years. And an opportunity came out for me to start working for Juul, to launch Juul in Canada. And vaping was becoming very, very big. And the opportunities were there. The pay was good. The salary was good, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Long story short, Juul was, they were a failure of their own success because they were growing too fast. They didn't have enough research to back out all the lawsuits that were coming out too at the same time. So they decided to cut down on fast expansion and take a step back. So they had to cut their company down by 66%. They went from like 3,000 employees worldwide to 1,000 employees worldwide within 4 months. Sorry, but within the first 2 months. So naturally, I was part of the group that lost a job in the first run. So Valorant comes out. I was then talking to my then fiance, and she was like, "Look, you love casting. Why don't you just give it a shot?" Like again, Juul gave you a great severance package, invested into your PC setup, your microphone, everything that you need to do, and like give it one last go and see where it goes. And I was like, "Sure, why the fuck not?" Right? And at that point, when I'm trying to make a comeback, this is the same situation as I was saying to you. Like, I can't be the type of person to be like, "Yo, boys, I'm back, baby." Like I was gone for fucking 8 years or whatnot from the CSGO scene. Nobody knows who I am except the talent that's in there. But those guys work so hard, guys and girls work so hard to build their brand and to be where they are, that I feel that it would be unfair that for me to try to like just go in, try to like navigate through shit and just try to push some people away. I wanted my work to do the job. And I felt that maybe in 2020 at that point, it would be a little bit too late for me to try to build my way back up, because what events are happening online right now that would have helped me build my brand back? Nothing exists anymore, right? There's no more ESEA, there's no more CEVO, there's nothing that's really going on. And naturally within Valorant, there was a lot of like grassroots tournaments that I was starting to build up, and I got to cast like the Hayes, the Cutler, the old boys from the CSGO days from CLG, and in a short amount of time, I just started loving casting Valorant on top of that. And because on top of like the tactical FPS thing is just like thinking about all the intricacies around all the abilities that are being used within a round to try to gain map control and how you fight back with your own abilities and stuff like that too. It's actually very, very fun to try to break down. I don't think I've spent any hours at all watching like pro teams, how they play, how Taco sets up with his team, or how Astralis has been running their defaults or stuff like that too. But I've been doing this nonstop, watching VODs and Valorant, and I've been enjoying it. So naturally, I was like, "Fuck it, man! If I can't get back into Counter-Strike, and I have no ways of getting back in, but I have great opportunities with Valorant, let's give that a shot." And I just ended up loving doing Valorant.
Yeah, it's a similar story to a lot of people I talked about that moved across from other games, like particularly Counter-Strike. Like, I don't think, there were some people who were there because it was like, well, another roll of the dice on the old career. Maybe I get lucky this time. Maybe I become the shit this time. Yeah, there was some cynical ass motherfuckers doing that. Like they just wanted to be the voice of the next big thing. I get it. I mean, shit, man. That's the business. I can respect the hustle in a way.
Exactly.
But like, there was a number of people that said they immediately sort of became like, excited again. And it was like the first time they'd felt that since they'd had the magic of, getting into Counter-Strike or, whatever their first jam was. Like, I'm like you, my first love was Counter-Strike as well, So it's really interesting because I feel that Valorant definitely has something that other games like Overwatch and, I don't hate me, Rainbow Six guys, because I like your game too. But I think there's something immediately enchanting about Valorant that maybe isn't there with some of the other FPSs on the market right now.
Yeah.
I just can't put my finger on what it is.
For me, I guess when I was in CSGO, it was still really grassroots still, right? We're still trying to build that. Even when you're looking at the ESL Pro League, it almost feels like you're building a new product currently with what Chad's been working on with the rest of the boys out there and girls for the desk and for the broadcast. But I feel like Riot's involvement in terms of how they market the game and market the community and keep the community almost like tight niche in a sense, or just like very we elevate each other quite well within the Valorant community through Riot. And I feel that them being also very hands-on into like being a part of the community as well has been one of those key factors for me that made me enjoy the game outside of just casting the game too. Like it feels like I'm buying fucking Valorant gear now that I have a Valorant windbreaker and shit that are outside because I just enjoy the product and the community that, and even the people that work around there too. I feel that, you know, there's been some controversies, conversations around how Riot runs their business and stuff like that too. But the people that are working within the company itself, they're still really great people, right? And I've developed some great friendships through casting in Valorant, like friends with people working in production, friends with people that are just working on the game in itself. That just made me really enjoy where I am right now. Whereas for CSGO, I never got to meet anybody except for the people that I'm casting with. And even then, opportunities that I had for LAN in CSGO were actually a lot lower than I had in Counter-Strike 1.6 on top of that too. So even networking got a little bit harder there as well. But yeah, I gotta give props to how Riot is currently pushing their product and how they're trying to build their circuit, the next partnership program and stuff like that too. And I'm excited to see where the direction of it is going. Whether it's with me or not with me as well for 2023. Again, no harm, no foul. It's like I don't know if I want to really say that it's like my last hurrah, because like I said, I still have a passion in casting games. If it's not going to be in CS, it's going to be Valorant. If it's not going to be Valorant, hopefully maybe back in CS. If it's not going to be in either of them, is there going to be another game? And if I don't find a game where I have a passion in casting that game, then maybe it is time to go back into the corporate world too. Like I always have it in the back end to be like, I could always go back as a sales rep. It doesn't really matter for me, but I want to continue to pursue my passion, which is going to be casting video games, and at least be part of a community that that would enjoy what I bring to the table. And I feel Valorant brings that.
Well, let's talk about how you sort of came up in Valorant as well, because I think it might serve. Obviously, listen, the talent we've got now probably isn't the same in 2025. Some people are going to go, some people are going to arrive. There's going to be new casters out there. We had that in CS. It's never too late. Like remember Scrawny, who's doing, finals and majors and everything now. He literally was a dude who was recording. A knife round. Yeah, exactly. Casting a knife round and put it on Reddit. So,
so funny about Scrawny too. So Scrawny casted a knife round. I saw it on Reddit. This is like 2015, I'd like to say. So he puts it up on Reddit. I was like, dude, this guy is fucking awesome. And back then I was working with Carl from Northern Arena to try to put together like CSGO tournaments. So I was actually helping him out, inviting the teams to go play in Toronto for the first event, but the second event was in Montreal. And the second event was when I heard about Scrawny, when I saw that clip, and I was like, yo, Scrawny is actually also local, and I want him to have an opportunity to cast, so he has the LAN experience that early to see what it's all about. So I reached out to Scrawny and he started casting there, and I'm fucking happy that he's doing the big stage with Mohan now. So really happy about their journey. Sorry to cut you on that.
No. Hey, it's good to give anecdotes. Everyone knows this now, but my anecdote is like the exact opposite. Like I heard it and I was like, oh yeah, this guy's good. But then like 3 days later, somebody made another Reddit thread, and I was like, I think I was going to buy the numbers, and it's like me and Duncan are just fucking misery loves company. So I was like, and what about that prick, this Scrawny gamer or whatever the fuck he calls himself, just keeps uploading a thread every day. Like, homie, we get it. You've got a good fucking radio voice, And I was like a real asshole. And then it was like this guy obviously like ascends, and I have to like meet him and stuff. And I'm like, yeah, totally sorry about that, dude. I don't know. Sometimes I am just a prick. Yeah. But anyway, so you obviously started doing a lot of back in 2020. There was a lot of people kind of like just doing. I don't want to call them like community cups, because it kind of like plays them down a little bit, but like these, open kind of tournaments, cups where people can sign up, stuff like the Fragadelphia and stuff like this.
Yeah.
And obviously some of these are a lot of these were online, at that
middle
time.
Pandemic.
Yeah, middle of the pandemic. So, at that moment when you're doing it, is there any like expectation, on your part of like, okay, well, this is like the audition. So eventually someone's going to see my shit and I'm going to get called up to the bigs. Or was it something to do because, fuck, we were all stuck indoors and bored out of our minds,
Yeah, no, I felt I kind of gave a lot of faith into Valorant being like the next big thing, right? And again, people who are watching right now, I don't want to do like a CSGO versus Valorant debate. It's more like both games could coexist, right? But I also believe that, because you're so vested into what you're currently doing with League of Legends as a formula, and it's been going pretty decently so far, and they want to go into a similar direction with Valorant, they could be doing something pretty good. And I was like, I want to be kind of like a part of that. So yes, it'd kind of be like my audition tape going into casting these events. But at the same time, it was also like, yeah, I just fucking lost my job, So like, let's get back into casting and let's find some money wherever we can. And thankfully, again, when it comes down to networking, I had Miss Harvey, Steph reached out to me, and that was one of the first events that I've done. Second event, actually. The first event that I've done was even before Garrett started working for the Knights, and I think it was the Knights running a tournament, and they asked me if I wanted to be a part of that to do like a community event. So I did that event. It was like a 16-hour day. It was pretty long over the weekend. Then I did an end box tournament, then a couple of CLG Blitz Cup with Miss Harvey. And then we all know Bach as well. So Bach's been around the CSGO scene for a bit too. Yeah. And Bach's been working for Nerd Street Gamers for quite a bit. And then they were starting to do some events online as well, and I started doing those events too. And that eventually led into finally doing like group stages of Ignition Series, officially now, named by Riot, sanctioned by Riot, and then into First Strike. So naturally, it was like a nice little progression of, thankfully, from my networking into where I got to now. So. I guess to get back to where you're saying, like, how does a newcomer get into that? Like, if you don't have that network that I did when I first started into that, it almost has to do with almost like what Scrawny's been doing, right? So what Scrawny was doing on his threads every day, there was actually a person who was doing something very similar in Valorant, and that's Simo. And Simo, unfortunately, is not grinding to be part of the casting crew anymore, but he had a great voice and he had a great personality as well. And he was actually trying to advertise himself every day to put himself on Twitter and to have some likes so that he could actually market himself, because there's not that many avenues, right? If you don't have the networking to get into these events. So I think that's a great way to start. Build your portfolio from there, build your demo reel, try to network with some current casters and see if they could send your demo reel to tournament organizers, and if you lend your shot out there to start. So that's pretty much how I got into Valorant at the start of the game, and I want to continue on with it as much as I can for now.
It's why obviously in Counter-Strike and back in the 1.6 days and stuff, it's why having the TV IPs was so important, I think. I genuinely believe, we wouldn't have had that unbelievable crop of like commentators, particularly the ones that came out of like North America and the UK almost simultaneously. Yeah. We wouldn't have had that if you couldn't just pick up a fucking IP, throw it on and commentate over it. Typically back then, here's the IP, everyone tune in, and let's all go on TeamSpeak, and I'll put you in the channel where you're muted, or like you say, back in the Winamp days or whatever, where it's literally radio. Now I feel like one of the good things that I think we're getting back to is this like concept of like co-streaming and sharing, so everybody gets to like do the games, everybody gets to try things out, and everybody gets to grow the scene collectively.
I agree with that. I think at first when co-streaming started to make a comeback, I was always a fan of the co-streams because it was like, oh shit, man, Tarek streaming, he's getting a lot of viewers. I know Tarek, like he's a homie and shit like that too. It's like, it's nice to see that he's doing well. Then at the same time, it's like, oh shit, everybody's going to watch Tark right now, but everybody's watching the mainstream. Are they going to add a little bit less importance into the current talents that are cast in the game, not specifically just in Valorant, but in the future of all the other esports, right? Because now even co-streams are going to be available for the Overwatch League this weekend for the Summer Showdown.
Exactly.
So then is that going to hinder into like Uber's job or something like that too? So I was like, at the same time, I was like, oh shit, this is my job might be in jeopardy at the same time. But the more I think about it, I think it's just if you want to have like the homey feel to be able to hang out with your friends at the couch to watch a game, then that's the co-stream in itself, and the internet allows for you to do that. But if you want to actually do watch, like everybody's going to watch that stream, everybody's going to watch the main stream, and everybody's going to be able to watch the main broadcasters on Monday Night Football at the same time too. Yeah. So for those that want to watch that, then at least they'll have that avenue as well. So I was like, okay, well maybe I don't need to worry about my job security as much in terms of competition within myself versus co-streams. It's more myself with my peers, myself with other products, and how do I one up myself and continue to evolve so that I could be a no-brainer as a pick in the future.
Yeah, and it's happening in mainstream sports now as well. You're getting options to watch like a game with an influencer or a former player or something like that. Snoop Dogg was commentating on the fucking Olympics, you know what I mean? Which is just like the most surreal shit of all time. And so it's like, look, at the end of the day, I don't think, I think the two can coexist, because if I'm really into a game, I'm going to want to throw it on and have like the fucking experience where it's like like some analysis, some color commentary, his desk between maps. Like, so I'm fully into the game. But if it's a game where I can sort of take or leave it and I just want to watch it in a casual environment, I can go on Tarek's stream and he's going to pull guests on. And, like he's going to bring George on, and George's going to say something that trips everyone the fuck. Just trips everyone the fuck out. And Tarek's going to say, you probably should go, bro. And that shit's funny regardless of what's going on the background. So you get the best of both worlds, I think.
Yeah.
When did you first get the tap on the shoulder coming out of the pandemic era of Valorant? When did you first get the tap on the shoulder and told, listen, we're considering you for bigger and better things than just these online cups?
Yeah, so this was I have to think that it's also thanks to Mark a lot, Bach with Nursery Gamers. Bach doesn't work with Nursery Gamers anymore. He's decided to leave that to pursue full-time casting as well. So he's in the same boat as me now. But back then we were all grinding it to try to see if it could be the next big thing in Valorant. NSG was producing, I think, one of these events, or at least they were doing the qualifiers and stuff like that too. And as I was doing the qualifiers through NSG, I think that's when Riot finally saw like what I was able to bring over to the table. So then the tap on the shoulder came. Hey, can you do like the FaZe Invitational? Can you do like the T1 Invitational? But I was still the caster that's just going to do like group stages for now, because you already had like big prominent names that were casting back then. So I'm thinking about Dan Gaskin, Chris Puckett, Golden Boy, like all the bigger names that are like high entities within the esports scene with the tenure that they had throughout the years. They were going to be the ones casting the final matches. And then DDK and Sean Garris comes into the table, and then they're going to be casting the finals too. And then, I was participating more towards group stages, maybe quarterfinals and stuff like that as well. First Strike comes, and I had more, I think, opportunities to do analyst desks than anything else, because more casters were coming in. And I think that was that period of time where Riot was trying to figure out, are we gonna try to split duos here in North America, or are we gonna try to keep the duos? Are we gonna try to make people work with each other to see what the product comes out of that one? And if we're going to bring new casters in, then that means there's not going to be enough space for Vansilli to cast play-by-play or color or whatever. Let's put him on the analyst desk. Let's see how he does on the analyst desk. So I had great opportunities with Riot through there in 2020. And then 2021 rolls around the corner. Pandemic's still going on. And then I'm still able to do these Elise Masters 1 because it was an online event. And then I think I've developed good relationships over with Riot as well in North America that allows me to continue to do the stuff with the Valorant Champions Tour for 2021, 2022. The only thing where I have a roadblock right now is trying to figure out how I get to the international events, right? Because I feel that it's still a different type of group that hires the people for the international stages, because it is a big corporation, right? So there's a lot of I guess different departments that work on developing different stages, and the international stages is one thing. So the tap on the shoulder still was there, at least for this year, but I don't know if that tap is coming for 2023 yet, which is
yeah. Well, look,
it's not nerve wracking, but it's you know, you start thinking about it to see what's coming up, you know.
Well, okay, so let's. I was gonna do that bit at the end, but I got some other questions, so it's all good.
Sure.
I do these things, like I create like a sort of virtual mind map where we might go. So it's okay if we're here now. Why do you think you wouldn't get the tap on the shoulder? Because like literally, like I think. The great thing about the Valorant talent pool, and I've said this many times, is it does feel that there was like a distillation in some of the other areas where, you know, like PUBG, I work PUBG events. I met some unbelievably talented people over in PUBG. Obviously, you know, Counter-Strike, you know, other games, you know, and everyone seems to kind of like come across and you've got people from all different backgrounds and different levels of experience. And I think it's a really good talent pool in Valorant, bar maybe one or two pretenders that don't do it for me. But ultimately, like when I listen to a broadcast, you know, I think you're fucking good at your job. You know?
I appreciate it.
So you know, why do you think you wouldn't be included in 2020?
Yeah.
Like it seems inconceivable to me, given your experience and everything you've done so far.
Yeah, I think it's also the double-edged sword when I tell aspiring casters to be humble in the process, right? Because when you're being too humble, at some point you don't really know if you're doing the right thing or not too. So I'm in that boat right now, right? Trying to figure out, am I doing the right thing? If people think that I am doing a great job, if you're saying that I'm a great caster right now, why am I still not getting these events, right? So that kind of starts settling in to be like, okay, the imposter syndrome is also coming back. Am I doing the wrong things sometimes, and am I not at the right standard for the international stages for Valorant 2? What do I still need to work on? And like I said, I only really started rewatching my broadcasts when I started casting Valorant in 2020. So myself, I know that I still have more to improve to be even better for my next broadcast. So maybe thinking about those type of things makes me think that I'm still not there yet, but I'm always on the other end of the spectrum where, yes, I may not get these opportunities now, but once that opportunity comes, holy fuck, are you going to get a good product out of me, right? Once I finally get that main stage. So I guess it's to try to stay patient along with it and not try to jump the gun too much, because I also don't want to be too disappointed if I don't.
Sure. But Riot must rate you highly, because didn't you do... I seem to remember there were some videos where you were like doing training. Was that part of Game Changers?
Yeah. It was part of Game Changers. Yeah, the Game Changers Caster Academy. That's actually a super great honor, actually. Yeah.
And you know, it's like you like. So I mean, put it this way: if I pick somebody to do like a training video, like that's kind of, you know, there's an inference there that I sort of rate them as being good at their job. Right? You know?
You're right. You know what, Richard? Fuck it. You know what? I should be getting 2022, right? I hope you're
there. It is.
No, but like I said, I think in the end is one of those moments where, because the industry is very competitive too. That's the way that I see it. I don't feel that there's anything that's political as to why I'm getting events or not at the international stage, or why I wouldn't get something for 2023. But you know, from what I hear is that there's still only going to be a limited amount of spots. And if you think like the mainstays of who's, at least to my eyes, that are going to be in North America, would be a no-brainer. The guys that are currently doing champions right now from North America. So you have Brendan Sideshow, Duggan Bala, most likely. And how many more casters would be available for these spots? Maybe 2, 3, 4 more. And out of 4 more, who's still available? There's myself, there's Dust, there's I Hold Shift, there's Tanner Metro. There's like a lot of fucking people that are very, very talented too, that has what it takes to work the VCT circuit as much as I do. And I feel that they deserve that opportunity as much as I do. Because like I said, in the end, 20 years, it doesn't really mean much if people don't know what I've done in those 20 years. I'm still starting Valorant 2020 the same time as Dust started, the same time as Shift started. So we're pretty much on an even playing field in that sense. So which is why, like, if I don't get it and I lose to somebody that that deserves it as much, I'm not gonna take it on with a chip on my shoulder, and which is why I'm always gonna be hesitant about it, just to know if I'm gonna be like a mainstay or not. I just want to be humble through the process.
Well, and not to mention, like, I mean, let's say, for example, you didn't get brought in to do those like international events or whatever.
Yeah.
I think
Locally,
one of the
most likely.
Yeah, I think one of the things that Riot Games have been like super praised for has been their approach to like, women's esports.
Yeah.
And, being part of Game Changers and stuff like that. I mean, I think that's important work, right?
100%.
We're doing that now over in Counter-Strike, where it gets a little bit more fucking complicated because it's being run by a fucking Saudi Arabian owned company, which makes it like, all right, I'll spare you the details.
That's another hour and 30 there. If you want to start talking about that.
No, I won't do it to you. But and so if you became like one of the regulars on something like that, I mean, that's still like a great accolade.
Oh, 100%. I'm never going to take any type of opportunities as anything else than the VCT, a quote unquote downgrade, right? Because that was also my mentality when I was casting esports in 2002. Whether I have 1 listener, 20 listeners, 3 people on Ventrilo, or 5,000 people in an arena, I'm still going to give my 120%. And I'm still going to love it because I still have a passion in casting. And a good thing about Game Changers too is that I get to work with 2 great people. I get to work with Rivington. I get to work with Potter. And Potter's been doing a great job as a coach and also a color commentator for Game Changers so far. So what they're currently doing for the scene for the Game Changers for the Game Changer scene is a great thing. I think that Riot's doing, and I'd love to be a part of that as well. And I've been getting those opportunities too, actually, with Game Changers, right? So you've mentioned it. I was able to do a presentation and help guide like the aspiring casters from the women's scene that want to be part of the casting crew, and that have aspirations to become a caster. And I think that was a great experience in itself. And then again, I've done Game Changers 1 and 2. Most likely we'll be doing Game Changers 3 that's coming up as well. I don't think that I'm shy from doing any other big Riot stuff that's going on outside of the international stage. So that's why I can't be too bitter either, Richard. I'm still having great opportunities with Riot so far, and they've been treating me super well. At least in terms of who I'm able to speak to in North America, channels are always open with that person. And we always have honest and good conversations. I would even consider this person to be a good friend of mine now. So I'm just enjoying the journey as I go.
Well, I mean, not only obviously is there like concern around what commentators are going to be doing next year, but obviously we're heading into this like pseudo franchising. We've been like drip fed a lot of details about what Riot's intentions are. Teams are being told you're not going to make it, and some have even, well, let's say some, quite a few have gone to the extra step of, well, if we're not going to be in the big show, we're gonna drop our teams because we can't really sustain at the grassroots. I'll start there. As somebody that obviously cares about the sustainable health of the game, you have a vested interest in it. Are you worried about maybe Riot not learning from some of the mistakes that the Overwatch League made and not having a sustainable grassroots scene?
I feel that they're still trying to put the foot in the right direction. If I want to compare it directly to Riot to Overwatch League, and I'm not saying that I'm a full expert to understanding how things are going, but to my understanding and to my knowledge, like Overwatch League, such as like CDL as well, you had to pay like a pretty hefty amount in it to be part of a franchise with Blizzard, right? Within the league of Overwatch. Correct. Or within CDL, and they're not getting too much ROI out of that, right? And which is why, by the way,
understatement of the year. You're so fucking diplomatic. I can tell you worked in the corporate world. Fuck me. Holy shit!
I mean, dude, I had to navigate through even the business laws and regulations around tobacco in Canada, and that's strict in itself. So
yeah,
I could pretty much be like a Canadian politician at this point. But that said, just to go on a slight tangent too, we get to a part where, at some point, because Richard, you lived through it with me as well, where we went through like a bubble in esports, where if Intel and NVIDIA weren't sponsoring CPLs or Intel Extreme Edition challenges anymore or whatnot, and they didn't have the marketing dollars, that esport in Counter-Strike was fucking dead. Yes. Right. Yeah. And at some point it felt like it was gonna it bursted, and there was no more money to be spent in that. Then when CS Source came out and then CGS came out, that was actually another divide and another bubble where, okay, you're trying to create a league, you're trying to put it on direct TV, you're trying to do the combine and bring it as like a sports franchise. It was a good idea, but way ahead of its curve. And then now you get into the franchising of Overwatch League or of Blizzard. But like, how the fuck did you convince people to invest $20 million into the scene where even the players themselves are not making that amount of money? They're not making whatever you're currently making at a professional level in traditional sports, and they're not even, some of them are sometimes that are grinding the scene are not even getting paid on time. So how does it work that that corporations fell under almost like a trap at this point to invest so much, where finally they realize, oh shit, did we get like fucking caught here? Like, are they just taking our money away? It almost felt like that. Like, I don't want to name names as well, but I'm just going to name it. I mean, it almost felt like what was going on with Scott Valencia back then too, right? When it comes down to like trying to build that scene and just taking that money away. And
yeah, well, I mean, we had a crazy back and forth, because obviously you had Angel Munoz was the first guy, you know, the godfather of esports, they call him. I always say that's appropriate because he's a fucking criminal. You know, I know motherfuckers. I talk to Odie still regularly. Yeah, he's like still owed money from like CPL 2000 and whatever the fuck.
There you go.
But you know, so you had that, and then obviously Valencia with the whole weird, like it was the CGS. He was involved, and he disappeared. Got involved in some Chinese VC company, bought the CPL brand, sold it. Like,
never saw that again.
Just, you know, where's the P under the shell? You know, like,
and that's why I hope that it wasn't continuing with what was going on here with the franchising. And now to get back to what we were talking about too, is like it almost feels like in a certain way you have learned something from Overwatch League, because you're not having to pay like a hefty fee within Riot to be part of a partnership program, right? At this point, we're trying to make it clear. I mean, not we, but like Riot is trying to make it clear that it's not a franchising model, but more like a partnership program.
Yeah,
they're actually paying teams to be part of their league, and there's going to be stipends and stuff like that too, based on whatever deliverables is going to have to be done from the organization to Riot, and what Riot delivers to the organization. So it's like a partnership in itself in that sense.
Yeah, but the thing that still worries me as an outsider, kind of looking in and you know, like having been around the block and seen a lot of, you know, leagues come and go and stuff. Is that I find if you make your flagship top heavy, you can be in for a bad time. Like to put it in a context, over in League of Legends, not only did you have, yes, they did franchising, but prior to that, they had an open circuit model, not unlike what's going on in Valorant. But then that kind of splintered away. You had collegiate, which Riot's been massively supportive of in League. You had, the academy sides that were coming in. You had established international leagues with an infrastructure in Korea, in China. You know, it was primed at the pump to have a global network where talent was going to come and go, academy leagues, everything. It was all there. It was all, you know, and it's like when I look over at Valorant and I see like 20 teams that whose names I recognize. This isn't even talking about the bedroom organizations, but 20 brands I've seen play in tournaments, and they're saying we can't really afford. We've not been picked for franchising, as everyone's calling it. Even we've not been picked, so we're dropping our team. What I'm worried about is like, where's the grassroots? How does talent be upwardly mobile? Where does the next generation of players come from when some of the boomers start to retire? Like, I think the investment has to go in at the bottom, not the top. That's generally what I've found in my experience.
I agree. I just find that right now, from whatever is going to be at the top heavy too, is like it's still a business in the end where organizations are still going to try to survive and make money at some point, right? Even from what I'm hearing, top organizations right now are still operating in the red too, right? So if you're trying to salvage most of your investments and stuff like that too, it's just normal that you want to be pushing towards a partnership / franchising model. For everything that happens after, maybe you're just jumping the gun early for these organizations because you don't really know what's going to be happening once you get into the grassroots of what would be should I say presented by Riot, right? Once it actually gets unraveled and revealed. But it is still an investment. Like, let's take, for example, I don't know, Ghost Gaming. The salary for that team is still quite high. But if you don't know what's going to be happening in 2023 for the grassroots scene, then maybe it's for you to cut your ties now and see if it's worth it for you to come back later, because you still need to make your business survive. And I think it's just sort of normal in that sense. That's going to happen. Like, I feel that people were kind of like bashing a lot into the partnership program because they're like, oh, all these teams are going to die and leave the scene once franchising comes. But you have to think about it. All of the teams that left are still also teams that wanted to be part of that partnership program, and they all went into the scene because they were expecting to be part of that partnership program. They wanted to get into the game early, just like there's a lot of casters that's going to make the switch over to Valorant to try to get into the game early. If you make it, you make it. If you don't, you leave, right? And I think seeing it that way is, even if you want it as a fan to keep an open circuit, to have all these amazing games of like underdogs making it into group stages such as Ghost Gaming and stuff like that too, it's still not sustainable for an organization, because if you're fighting into your open bracket, there are still great possibilities that your team is still not going to be streamed on the main broadcast. And even if even the open qualifiers is not even streamed on the main broadcast, it's just being streamed on, like, let's say, Nerd Street Gamers channel. So your impressions or your numbers or whatever is still going to be very fluctuating, right? And it's all based on luck. So you want to try to build some sort of consistency. And that consistency right now is to think, okay, we know what's going to be happening at the top, but it almost seems that they have a good plan of what's going to be happening towards the grassroots scene too, from a pyramid that they announced within their plans of 2023. There is supposed to be some sort of path to pro, right? There is going to be some sort of tournaments that's going to be feeding straight into the game client. That's going to help you get into like the regional league. The regional league would also help you get into the global league. The global league will also be able to help you get into the partnership program for about 2 years, and they're adding more teams. So there's still some sort of path to pro that's different to other games that I've seen, titles that I've seen. Will it work? I hope so. Will it work? I don't know, right? Because this is something that's new, that's been untested. From a business perspective, like I said, if I'm like a Ghost Gaming or a Knights or something like that, and I have to look about cutting costs and keeping my cash flow for other things that I'm working on right now as an organization, as a company, then it kind of makes sense. It's worrisome as well as a fan, for sure. But we just have to wait and see what happens for 2023.
Yeah, and look, I got to be honest, like, this probably surprised some people listening to this. But, I definitely see it from Riot's perspective as well, that this is essentially, it's a speculative project, right? Yeah. You are creating something brand new. You are doing it a certain way. And the success is largely dependent on the value, a part of which is popularity, that your partners bring to the table. And so, especially when you consider a lot of the revenue streams, like the sale of skins and stuff like that. And I saw a lot of these lesser teams say, we're pulling out. We're not going to be involved in competitive Valorant anymore. And I'm like, it was never going to be you.
Exactly.
Right? It was never going to be you, because you don't generate enough value for it to be you. So, and I get it. Like, no one has to be the asshole that tells them that, but I'm the asshole who tells people that. It's like, you didn't generate the value. It was never going to be you. So you should have had some sort of plan somewhere along the line, like, as to like what a post rejection world looks like for you. And I don't think a lot of these guys did. I think a lot of these guys were pretty fucking delusional about, you know, here's a bunch of letters with a number in it, and we've paid $250 to some artist to make us a fucking logo. If you turn it sideways, it's a dolphin. Isn't that, you know? And so can we play in the big boys pool now? And it's like, nah, sorry. You can't compare to like the unprecedented growth or success of the Sentinels. You can't compare to 100 Thieves yet, you know. And remember, when I talk about brands like that, they're not even that old. There's no reason it can't be you. It just isn't you, and you need to figure out why the fuck that is, I think. So,
yeah, exactly. And then I think and as you're touching upon what happens to, like, let's say players, like there's no really big plan as to like what's the path of a retired player, what's the path of a retired caster, what's the path of a retired coach. How can you stay within the ecosystem and stuff like that too? I hope that we're going to be able to find something as well. But if not, it's still going to have to be like the individual hustle for now, right? If you're looking at like Josh, for example, like Steel, right? He's just streaming a shit ton. He's playing for T1. That's his plan B. If he's actually going to get cut from T1 when the partnership program works, or if T1 even gets a part of it or not, right? If they don't get a part of it, naturally, it almost feels like the team's going to T1's not going to participate in Valorant. So what's the next step? Well, at least thankfully now, like he's building his popularity on TikTok. Like he's doing a lot of reels right now and stuff like that as well. So at the same time, the side hustle it's an individual hustle to build your brand so that you can actually keep some sort of relevancy into the scene, into streaming or whatnot, or just into your own community. So I think that's the only avenue it seems like that we have currently. But I hope that there's going to be more into like, okay, well, you had the experience into casting. Can you actually work into like production or something like that too? Like any projects that could be available that could leverage your expertise, depending on what facet you were in the esports scene and how you could make things better, right? So hopefully that's going to come.
Yeah, and look, because so much of what they're trying to do around this partnership program is going to be about content as well. You know, I'm trying to think about it from a perspective of like an ecosystem. And so, you know, listen, you might not be good enough to play for Sentinels, but you might be someone under the Sentinels umbrella and you understand. You know, I think what will probably end up happening is you'll see a lot of coaches, a lot of analysts, a lot of commentators get kind of like, you know, if they're not going to be on a broadcast, they're going to get affiliated with these orgs and they're going to produce content around it, like breakdowns of games, you know, take the comms from the Discord or whatever. And you know, you get, I think there's going to be, you know, there's going to be jobs there. It's, you know, it's going to be a little ecosystem where people can still get work and stuff like that. It's just, unfortunately, you know, there's not going to be room for everybody at the fucking table on day one, you know?
That's it. And it's always going to be like that, right? So
yeah, I mean, that's every esports league ever, really.
That's every job.
Yeah, that too, right? You know, I mean, you know, I just hope, and I don't know if you have any inkling into this, so I'll frame it as a question.
Sure.
I believe there needs to be some sort of feeder league, call it an academy league, call it a B league, call it whatever the fuck. But I think there needs to be something like that there. So there's an aspirational element for all the tier 2, tier 3 players. Do you know if there's any plans to have something like that by the time the franchise league rocks up?
I unfortunately haven't heard about anything. The only thing I've heard was actually even reports coming out from like, I think it's like Bo that was also mentioning like, you know, it's actually false that the application itself, when you're trying to apply to the partnership program with Riot, that indicated that you needed to have an academy team, right?
Yeah, so that,
and even because of that, some organizations now don't even have 2 squads anymore, right? They drop 1 squad, they drop the main squad, they keep the academy, or vice versa. So I feel that potentially going into the partnership program, that might be an indication that it's not going to happen. But I feel that if they've had a successful model going in through like the collegiate scene and the academy scene with League of Legends, then I wouldn't see why we wouldn't do it for Valorant in the long run. Again, going with the political answer too is like maybe they're just trying to go do that typical you know, crawl, walk, run type of like plan as to everything that you're trying to roll out, right? partnership program. How is that going to pan out for the first couple of years? Is that going to be okay? Have we solidified that product first so we could continue to elaborate on our next product is to building that path to pro? How, and I'm pretty sure Riot's been doing a good job too of like they've been hiring more and more people from what I've been seeing on my timelines. So maybe there's going to be right now other separate departments that are working in conjunction with the current partnership program to make sure that they build something that evolves into that real path to pro that they've envisioned, right? So, and all these things always take time, right? You don't want to rush things, because if you start rushing things, that's where shit can start hitting the fan and you're getting even more negative publicity more than what you were in what you're planning to do in the first place. So, I definitely do hope that there's going to be something for the tier 2 scene for sure.
Yeah, and you know, I can't imagine that. Like, one of the things I always hated about the way Riot treated the development of the league was they basically worked with partners, you know, like MLG and you know, it was like IPL and ESL. And they let them have tournaments, some of which were really, really memorable and really, really good. And then and then they took it all away, you know. And it's like,
including employees.
Exactly. And so, you know, what I think that would be. Yeah, for League was a phenom at that time. It wasn't going to be destructive. Like, Riot had definitely outgrown the need for business partners when they made that decision. I still think it was a shitty thing to do, and I still think it reduced the overall size of League. And maybe now League's in a shrinking period. Maybe they regret it a little bit. I don't know, but certainly. I think for the health of Valorant, which is still in the very tentative stages, and is up against other titles like CSGO in a way that League wasn't. Remember, it came out in the void where Heroes of Newith was the supplemental until Dota 2 came out. Yeah. So, you know, I hope they still work with partners to put on like community cups and things like that. So there's still something for tier 2 players to do rather than leave the scene.
Well, I think even in a calendar, I think that they announced for 2022, right? So Champions is currently happening as we speak. Yeah. And as it finishes over the next weekend, there's basically a lull period from then until 2023, where from my understanding, within that period of time from October until February, it's like kind of like a window of opportunity to do player transactions and whatnot, but also a period at the end of the year where they're supposed to be doing events very similar to the Ignition series that we saw from like 2020, 2021, right? So then that allows third-party tournaments to actually get some events going. Like even like Red Bull is doing the Red Bull Campus Clutch. They're doing the Red Bull Home Grounds. So Red Bull Campus Clutch is around like the around the collegiate scene where it's almost like a World Cyber Games for Valorant, right? You compete regionally as a team from that country, and then your country competes at the world stage against all the other countries to see who's the best country in Valorant at the collegiate level. So I think that in itself is pretty cool. That's a nice little third party that's being run. Of course, it's not a little company, it's not a small company being Red Bull, but at least it's in that period of like that downtime of the VCTs. So I think we have opportunities within that period of time to have more interest from tournament organizers to show what they have as a product to offer. Because I think, yes, it might be costly for them to run things sometimes if you want to buy into the licensing of running stuff for Riot, but it's still a great platform to use Riot as your marketing dollars to make sure that your name's out there to say, we're able to put these type of tournaments, we're able to put this type of production, here's our reel to help you ex-corporate to do your kind of stuff, you know? So I feel that it may be going towards a pretty good direction. But I definitely want to keep my hopes up for sure. I think I haven't heard or have had any negative experiences through my 2 years so far with the grinding to make it through with Riot. So I expect it to continue that way because I have no indication or inclination that it's going to head somewhere sour or somewhere south.
Yeah, and like you say, I mean, you know, things look to be picking up pace. I saw there was a report the other day that it's like they want your for the partnered teams, they want to see their rosters by like next month. So.
Yeah. And it's like their soft quote unquote soft lock. Like I think
Yeah.
they could still do some transactions from now until February, but they want to know who's going to be like the main core that's going to be participating into the event. So that's going to be announced very soon. So that's pretty hype for the partnership teams, for the fans that are trying to figure out what's going to happen with the partnership league in 2023. But just like everybody else, I think we're still also waiting on what's going to happen under that umbrella of the partnership program. How's the format? How's the schedule going to look? How is the schedule going to look between what's under the VTTs with what is also with the partnership program, right? Because you have to think about the scheduling within that aspect as well, so that I guess the broadcasting don't overlap either. So yeah, I feel that it's going to be a pretty busy calendar for Valorant in next year.
Yeah. So we're coming to the end of our time. So there's yeah, no, it flies by, right?
I just opened a second one.
Well, hey, you keep going. You keep going.
Every time you do your show, I just see you drinking beer. I was like, I'll just follow you this time. And then I'm what the hell, man?
Yeah, I know. It is because I gotta work. After this, I like I'm in like the middle of like a story, and like if I get too lit, I just I get bored of typing and I go and drink more. So if I have like one or two, I'm no good at a keyboard. You know? So anyway, you know, we've talked a lot about like the passion of casting, the desire to be a mentor, and on top of that, you've talked about how, you know, well bedded in you feel with the Valorant scene, and how you're like really happy to be a part of it and all of that stuff. So I you know, I gotta ask, we've seen it with like Sean and DDK and other people. Like, you know, if you were to be told like, hey, listen, you know, Vansilli, we're gonna bring in some Zoomers. They know all the cool words. They know what bricked up means.
Yo, I know what clears means now. Yo,
this guy clears. You know, so we're gonna go in that direction. No hard feelings. But could you ever see yourself doing like a coaching or a general management role to stay involved in the Valorant ecosystem?
I would love to. But at the same time, I have no idea what the fuck a general manager does. I'll have to ask Dan when I have a chance to speak with him. But like, you know, like I study VODs all the time and stuff like that too. But am I actually good enough to be like a coach, to be like an analyst, to help a team or something like that too? I don't know, right? I'd love to have that opportunity. And
I can help you out. You know, I did it.
Yeah.
In Counter-Strike Source. You know what the biggest part is? It's not even the game, because often you're working with players that like you can't tell them how to play because they do fucking know. But it's either conflict resolution between team members or it's more effective communication. It's, you know, sometimes it's nerves and anxiety and how to put people into positive headspaces. You know, when they're going through their protocols, like, you know, you see people get nervous and it breaks down. It's like they know they shouldn't re-peak there, but they do because they want to get a kill because they're anxious because they got killed last round. It's like, how do you shut down that mental unraveling? But generally, it's communication and conflict. They're the two big. So I think you could do that, no problem, bro.
Yeah, I think if it's just mentoring in that sense, like the psychological way, I think I'd be able to do it too. But like, just to try to figure out, like, as a general manager, how to scout for players, how to bring them into the system and stuff like that too. That's a learning curve. And like I said, anything that's new for me, I never want to use my name to be like, I'll be able to do it. Like, let me know what it's all about first. And I'll see if I'm a right fit. Cause that's one thing that I hold dear into my work ethic as well, is that I don't really want to take a job or take an opportunity just to have the opportunity. I want to make sure that, you know, there's good results that comes out of it, that I could be a key member into your project. And if I could do that, then fuck yeah, give me that opportunity. But if not, like, let me learn it, and I'll see if I have what it takes personally through my own assessment to see if I could help you out. But yeah, I would love to be, like, if it's not for general manager or for coaching, I'd still love to be within like mentorship for casting, right? If I could use my experience for that, 100%. I feel that I could bring something to the table again to help out the younger or newer, because, you know, you don't have to be a certain age to start casting. You could be any age. But if I could help out those people in that direction, then I'll definitely take that opportunity too.
Yeah, I'm surprised actually that there hasn't been like an offer for you, like for you at some point. already, you know, because it's like seriously, like there's one thing you can't synthesize in esports, and that's like the time spent. You know, like people come in and it's like, yeah, okay, hey, I've been involved in esports for 5 years. I'm a veteran. I'm like, guys, I know motherfuckers. Like people think I'm like first gen esports. I'm not even first gen esports. Like I'm second gen, maybe even third. Like you know, like, and I'm old school. Like I'm talking about the boys who were there in like 98, 99, talking about fucking Quake and you know whatever else. So it's like there's a lot to be said. It's an important commodity these days. It never used to be, but I think now it is.
Yeah, definitely. I hope that my experience could help out anywhere within the scene. I'd love to stick within esports in whatever facet that my capabilities, my talent could bring. I would, because again, when I first started this in 2002, and I was mentioning CS, but you were mentioning Quake. I was casting Quake 2 as well. So I was doing that back then as well. But where was I getting that with this? I want to stay within the scene, because when I first started casting, it was always a passion to try to bring competitive gaming, before it was called esports, to the next level, to put it on TV, to make it a mainstay into like our culture and in our future generations. So if I could continue to build that into different facet, I feel like the job is not done yet, right? And there's more to do. And while I'm still alive, if I could still do it, then by all means, man, hit me up.
All right. Well, look, the last question in all of these is always, you know, what are you going to be doing next? Which is kind of a weird question for you at the moment, but it is how I always sign off on these. So what are you going to be doing next? Where are people likely to see you?
Yeah, awesome. No, I appreciate it. I'm going to be doing Game Changers 3. It's not announced yet, but I've just announced it now. And
excellent.
then
Congratulations.
thank you. Then I had to still figure out what's happening in 2023. But until then, I think what I'm just going to do is I'm going to be streaming a lot more, just continue to do fight reviews and stuff like that to continue to stay on top of the meta for Valorant. And I've also started working with AimLab with their player-based stuff. So as I was talking about coaching and stuff like that too, they have a coaching platform. They're now doing it and trying to expand it into casting as well. So if there's actually anybody that wants to, you know, book a session with me or stuff like that too, and have that discussion, then I'm available for that as well. If not, I mean, actually, there's a couple of other things in the works. There's gonna be other announcements from now until the end of the year. I wasn't able to do champions as a LAN, but I'm definitely doing a LAN from now until the end of the year. That's gonna be pretty big in my eyes, so I'm looking forward to that too.
All right, okay, I like it. Well, look, brother, always a pleasure. Should do it more often, but I know like I'm a fucking workaholic and everything. Bro,
if anything, we'll do in 10 years, like you said, man.
Yeah, no,
more to catch up on, right?
Well, like you said, no, this everyone. I'm locked into it now. Ever since Dom Sacco said I'm retiring, even if I didn't want to, I have to do it. Like all I said was I was going to do less content. Like that was it. I'm fucked now, you know. So I'll have to do the farewell tour. I'm going to get Launders on because it's been
dude, that's awesome.
It's going to be like it's been 100 episodes since his first appearance, and I think when we first had him on, he was like, you know, he literally just got into doing the casting on the regular, like as in, you know, moving up. Yeah. So
tell that motherfucker, like, I'm still sour that he cut me, so he started working with Scrawny, so he pushed me out.
What a piece of shit! What a snake! You know what I mean?
I love those guys. I love those guys.
No, they're great. So it's a real pleasure talking to you. I certainly hope you know, you do get selected for 2023. I think you're a real asset for any broadcast and have some time,
man.
And there you go, guys. That's Vansilli. Whether you're a Counter-Strike fan, you remember him from the old days, or a Valorant fan. Yeah. Oh God, I didn't even mention that. I got through the whole podcast without bringing it up. Sorry, Dust. We're all sorry. We're all very sorry about how that went down. Hilarious. But yeah, so whether you're from the old world of Counter-Strike or the new world of Valorant, make sure you follow him and show him some love on social media. Great guy and very talented at what he does. And long may that continue. And that was this episode of the Richard Lewis Show. As always, I don't know who the next guest is going to be, when it's going to come out, when it will happen, but it will be awesome. So make sure you tune in. Make sure you follow for more content like this. And until next time, take care of yourselves. Bye.
He's the man to do the damage. Oh! As he looks for another headshot.